Money is made on the purchase, not on the sale. Market is what defines the price that it's willing to pay for your product. So you're actually much more likely to increase profit on the purchasing process instead of the sale. And in this video, I'm going to tell you how to do this, how to increase profit in sourcing. Subscribe to the channel to get tips every week. So there's a saying called money is made on the purchase, not on the sale. So this is actually a very good saying and very much spot on. So we're going to be talking about how to increase profit in sourcing. But first, a word of warning here, because some of these things that I'm going to say, they might actually discourage you. So just consider these as tips when you're ready to build a competitive advantage, and not as something to prevent from getting the cash flow running. Because in the beginning, speed matters more than the best price. Because let's say that you spend like 6 months negotiating the best price and you finally get it done. But who cares? Because you have already lost like 6 months of cash flow. So speed really matters more. And number one thing is always getting the first sale as quickly as possible. So really optimizing the time to market. And the same thing applies for testing out new product ideas. This is true even for us, like when we are considering launching a product, it's always we need to optimize the time to market. So we ask our team, okay, how long is it actually going to like launch this thing, and how quickly do we get, like, how long is the cash conversion cycle, and how long does it take to get the time to market? And if it's several months, then my team is not going to like my answer. So it's so that the better. And you can and you absolutely should optimize profit along the way. So point is that you have to be fast, but you mitigate the risk. So word of warning here. And now let's go into sourcing. So if you get quoted in US dollars, then you have already lost. So this is another saying, and it is spot on. Because foreign prices typically go up, and it can go up like 30% even. So payments, you should deal mainly using RMB. So this means that you get the quotes in RMB, you make the payments in RMB, and you can do this, even with like virtual bank accounts. And you should definitely use virtual bank accounts and not solely rely on your own bank account. Because one thing is that Amazon only deposits local currency, and this local currency is based on your country. So let's say that you enter a Finnish bank account on Seller Central, then you can only receive euros to that bank account. And Amazon also takes this 3.5% currency exchange fee, and maybe it's not such a big deal like when you have like small deposit. But when I'm getting like 100K, 6 figures deposits, then why should I pay like Amazon like $4,000 just for the currency exchange fee? So no way. I want to get it as close to zero. And another point is that I want to have a lot of the funds in US dollars, but if I don't use virtual bank accounts, and let's say my bank account is in a country using euros, then I cannot send like US dollars to that country. And thing about Alibaba is that bottom line is that on Alibaba you will get typically higher prices. And we have been using Alibaba, and in the beginning we used only Alibaba, but eventually you should look outside of Alibaba, because you're basically just going to be getting higher prices. And one thing also to consider is that the person or the entity that is selling you the product, is it a broker, like a trading agent, or is it a factory, is it a supplier? And basic rule is that if they speak English, then you're dealing with a broker. It's not a factory, it's not a supplier. And I mean, first contact is always asking the price. And another thing to consider is that the export license, because I mean, many of these factories, they're not really exporting those goods anywhere. So they don't even have an export license. So, but then again, I mean, broker, let's say this trading agent, I mean, they might be dealing with hundreds of different products. So they are not necessarily an expert on the product. But the thing is that, I mean, you can use either one of these, but bottom line is that you should know it. I mean, we have been using many different brokers like trading agencies, and it's not such a big deal. And I mean, for one reason has been that, I mean, we actually got much better, like we had a much better relationship with one of these brokers, and they really gave like better customer service for us as a buyer instead of the supplier. I mean, we were dealing with also the supplier, I mean, the factory, and then the trading agent. And we actually prefer dealing with the trading agent just because they actually serve our needs better than the actual supplier. So sometimes it can be like this. And funny thing is that, I mean, sometimes these brokers might pretend to be a factory. I mean, it was actually even the case with that one broker, but I mean, you should just be aware that is it a broker or is it a factory, and then basically make decision based on that. So when we're talking about actual negotiations, I mean, never settle with the initial price. That's just basically to get you in, and that's basically just the start of the discussion. And get quotes without the packaging, get quotes with the package, with the product alone, and have quotes from multiple suppliers. I mean, that goes without saying, right? I mean, just get as many different quotes as possible and use as many suppliers as possible, basically to bid against each other. And I mean, you also ask for large volumes, because then you can see that, okay, at which point does the like, what are the breaking points for the prices? So if I order 500 units, 5,000 or 15,000, okay, I mean, what is the point that it actually goes much lower? And this is a really important thing. I mean, always use X works, because if you're not using it, then you're going to be paying significantly more. So X works means that you're the one going to be handling this shipping of these items. So it means that you just use your own freight forwarder, and that freight forwarder will basically pick up all the items from the supplier and then deal with all those customs and stuff like that. So, I mean, basically you are not involving the supplier in the shipping thing. Okay, so maybe you're thinking that, hey, okay, sounds good, I really need a sourcing agent, but how do I get a sourcing agent? Well, that's a good question. So sourcing agent, I mean, you don't necessarily even need a full-time sourcing agent. I'm just consider that, okay, how many new products are you launching all the time? Like, are you going to be launching new products every month? Because, I mean, if you're not, then, I mean, why would you need a full-time sourcing agent? No, I mean, usually the case is that, I mean, part-time would be just enough. I mean, you can find people basically from anywhere, so Upwork, Google. And the key thing is that, I mean, this person has to be located in China and speak Chinese, because, I mean, as we noticed, like, suppliers don't speak English. And one thing that this sourcing agent will do is, first of all, gather all the samples, analyze them, so make notes, and give you like feedback about every single sample they get, and then send over you all these samples in one shipment, meaning that you don't need to pay. Let's say that if you're getting 10 samples from 10 different suppliers, you don't need to pay for every single one. No, I mean, this person will just combine all these samples into one shipment and then send it over to you. Then basically you have the notes from this person saying that, okay, here you have like 10 samples and I took a look at them, and here's like the different, here's what's good about this and that, and this one is best based on this requirement that you gave me. So that's basically what the sourcing agent then will be one important task. And for God's sakes, I mean, for samples, don't use your own FedEx account. I remember I actually did this mistake in the beginning. So we were working with one trading agent, and he was asking me, okay, where should I send these samples? I mean, he was basically doing the same thing as a sourcing agent. So he was collecting samples from all the different suppliers, and then he was asking, okay, hey, can you send me your FedEx account? And I didn't really think about it. I just gave him, okay, here's my account. And damn, I mean, the price was like, I remember like receiving invoice from FedEx after it arrived, like 200 euros. What? $200 for like just set of samples. And that's because, I mean, FedEx prices in Europe or in Finland are significantly higher than FedEx prices in China. So you should definitely use the Chinese FedEx accounts. So which means that I should have told him that, no, I mean, just use your own account and send an invoice for me later on. So I will pay you, I will not pay FedEx. So that would have been a smarter decision. So, and this is actually really important. Like I said, like when you should ask quotes without the packaging. So get quotes from your supplier without the packaging, with the product only. Because one thing is that, I mean, it will significantly save on cost. And you will have much better options, I mean, much more options and choices for the packaging. I mean, when it comes to customization and all different things that you want to do on packaging, like we discussed a couple of weeks ago. I mean, sky is the limit pretty much. And then you just get quotes for thousands, and I mean, practically it doesn't cost much to get like thousands of different packaging and different like product inserts. You can do so many different things. I mean, if you're asking your supplier to get product inserts for you, I mean, then you're making a mistake, because you're just paying them unnecessary. You should not do that. You should use a separate printing company. And one thing is that, well, like when we started using a like third-party printing company, I mean, our costs went really low. And the key thing about this one was also that, I mean, this company, I mean, nobody over there spoke English. So, I mean, there has to be this Chinese speaking person. So that's what I mean, like you should have this sourcing agent. And like I said, I mean, when you have a printing company, when you're working with a printing company, then that's when you can really get creative. And key, very important point, I mean, do not let the suppliers ship the products for you. Don't let them even help, because if you're asking for their help, then they are basically just going to ask some friend of theirs, and they are just well, I mean, they are going to get their share of the prices, so you will actually going to be paying more. So if you want to save on cost, then you use your own freight forwarder. And there's so many different freight forwarders around, so you can really pick and choose. Another point is these HTS codes, so harmonized tariff schedule. So this comes in place when you're importing goods to US. So are you using the right codes when importing your goods to US? Because if you're not using the right codes, then you might be actually just paying for nothing pretty much, because what it means that you're just using the wrong category. And if you would find a better category for your product, I mean, it might mean that you're actually like some tariffs, tolls will go to zero. So here's a website where you can check this out. But I mean, I can tell you, I mean, some of these are pretty complicated, and it's not easy to tell like on which code, which category to use for your product. So I mean, definitely ask broker to do this. So, and it has to be English speaking professional, meaning that it's some person, if you're importing, I mean, it has to be a person in the US who actually understands these things. And I mean, definitely don't ask suppliers or Chinese brokers about this, because chances are that, I mean, what is the likelihood that they will get it right? It's pretty slim. So you should definitely use professional people in the US for these ATS calls. And typically it might be like different like freight forwarders have expertise on this. So you should, that's basically the first place you could ask your freight forwarder, like, what is the HTS code that I should use for my product? And this might mean that you actually save on Trump tax as well. So meaning that you don't need to pay like 20% or whatever when you're importing goods in the US. Then let's say that, okay, you have made your negotiations with the supplier, you have agreed a certain price and everything, your quotes and stuff, so you are making this pro forma invoice. I mean, that's binding, so you should definitely add different terms there, like for example, defect rate. So what happens, like what is an acceptable defect rate in your order? And what is the inspection failure? Like, let's say an inspection fails, then what happens then? So what kind of terms do you have there? And this means that, I mean, pro forma is binding because it's sealed and signed. And here you should basically sign off the production sample, meaning that, okay, this is the sample that is good enough for me, and that I want every single unit to be like this. And if it's not like this, then what happens then? And oh my God, I mean, it's so typical that quality goes lower in later batches. So I mean, let's say that you do your first order, then everything works fine, and you're like, oh my God, this is great, this is so good. So I mean, I'm actually going to be saving costs. So next batches, I don't want to pay like $200 for quality inspection, so I will just skip that part. And I can tell you that's a big mistake. You need to inspect every single shipment because the quality tends to go lower in later later batches. So it might be that the quality is great in the first batch, but the second batch is just, maybe the second is fine as well, third, but then eventually it will go lower. So you need to catch these things at the supplier. I mean, let's say that, you cannot do the quality inspection in US if your factory is in China, because I mean, what's the point? I mean, it's already in US. It's already like maybe even shipped to the, I mean, it's basically too late. So the point when you want to fix these things is when the goods are still at the supplier, when you still have not paid the full amount. So that's the point when you do these quality inspections. And if you have larger order, let's say you have like 100,000 units or whatever, then you are going to be like inspecting those in different batches. Like, let's say that, okay, 500 units are ready this week. Fine, okay, cool. We will inspect those and ship those out. And this also means that even if you have really like, professional inspector, I mean, they still don't know your product. So that's why you are the one who needs to write these like clear requirements that, okay, I mean, what do we need to inspect and what are the different things that I need to look out, and they are going to be doing these like random checks, like they're just going to open a box that, hey, okay, let's take this and that, and let's open another box. So what are the different things they need to inspect? For example, when you're selling on Amazon, I mean, it's always very important to get the labels right, because if the labels are not right, then, I mean, once Amazon, because you're making all this effort to get your goods to Amazon, and when it arrives to Amazon, and when Amazon scans the item, then if that doesn't work, then I mean, it's basically you're going to be having difficulties, and it might even result into that Amazon will reject your shipment. So that's definitely a big pain. Oh yeah, this is actually a funny example. So this is when we started, and it was one of our first products. So, and this is what we found from or sourced from Alibaba. And I mean, like I mentioned before, typically prices are more expensive on Alibaba, and typically the supplier or so-called suppliers you find in Alibaba, I mean, more often they are brokers, they are trading agents, so they're actually buying the goods from someplace else and then just reselling to you. So this is a fine example. So we send our like quality inspection team over there, and they were like laughing, like, oh my God, Jesus guys, I mean, you have really fantastic supplier here. So it was like one guy's living room. So it was just like one bedroom over there, and the guy was like packaging all the items in his living room, and our like quality inspection team were just laughing when they arrived there, like, so this is your factory, so this is your own place, nice factory you have here. So those are the things that you need to be aware of when sourcing from China, or basically sourcing from anywhere. You just need to know that where is the origin of these items. And we basically have this stock rule of 2 + 2 months. And what it means is that we want that 2 months of inventory is on Amazon or the target market. Like nowadays, when there's all different inventory limits, I mean, it's fine. It doesn't have to be on Amazon, but it's still on the target market, which means that we can quickly ship items to Amazon, so we don't go out of stock. So this means that if you sell X amounts of units per month, then I mean, just count it, just double it, so you have that amount of inventory in the target market or Amazon, and then another 2 months worth of inventory at the supplier. So if the supplier is in China, so then the supplier in China will store those 2 months of inventory. And the way we work is that, I mean, once the inventory has left the supplier, I mean, we have already by that time made another order, so we are not going to be running out of stock. And combining orders is something that you should definitely do to help like cash flow. So this means that, I mean, typical ways that you pay like 30 and 70. So you make the order, you pay 30%, and when it's left the supplier, then you basically pay 70%. But I mean, you don't need to do that. I mean, sure, probably in the first order you have to do that, but once you build a relationship with the supplier, then you can find all different ways how you can actually optimize your own cash flow. So meaning that you can pay 10% of the second order, and then when there are actually goods have left the supplier, then it would give you another 30 days to pay. For example, we have had we had one big order. It was for like $100,000. Then we just broke it into smaller batches. So I mean, we definitely didn't pay like $30,000 on day one. No, I mean, we paid something, and basically we got more time. And you can find all sorts of ways how to do this. And typically, like, suppliers are really willing to handle this, because it just means that they are going to be getting more business, and that's what they want. I mean, you can make all sorts of arrangements when the mutual respect is there. But I mean, as mentioned, it's only possible after the first order. I mean, very rarely you can make like special deals on the first order. Or I mean, if you, in the cases where we have made that, it's because we have had some kind of relationship with that person, with that supplier already in place. But that's pretty much how it works. And I mean, the dealing with the Chinese suppliers, I mean, it's a lot about building the relationship. So it has to be like two-way street. So I mean, it's not only that they respect you, but you also need to respect them and find ways how to basically build business together. So that's pretty much it. Any questions? How about this? I mean, how many of you are still paying in US dollars? Okay, Helen is asking like where to find a sourcing agent. So, I mean, first question is that, I mean, do you even need a full-time sourcing agent? Because you need a full-time sourcing agent if you are shipping goods like everything. I mean, sourcing new products like every single month. Like every single month, I have stuff that the sourcing agent needs to do. Because remember, I mean, what is a sourcing agent doing? I mean, it's first of all, I mean, getting all these samples and finding different suppliers and also like negotiating with them. But I mean, it has mainly to do with new products. So it depends like how many new products do you need all the time. And if you don't have new products all the time, you probably don't need a full-time sourcing agent. I mean, of course, they are going to be negotiating with your existing suppliers, I mean, get you better deals and stuff like that. But I mean, you need to ask yourself, like, do I really need a full-time sourcing agent? And if not, then I mean, you should definitely use like part-time people. So you can find people from Upwork, and you can even just Google different person and so on. Jan is asking, do you find it as a risk that sourcing agent leaks your product idea to multiple Chinese sellers and ruins the market? Well, what do you mean? So you mean this, I mean, let's say that when you're using a professional sourcing agent, like what is it that they do? What is, how do they make money? It's not probably by like ruining relationship with their clients, right? So what sourcing agents want, they want basically more business to be finding these different products and so on. So, I mean, that's what where their focus is on. So I don't really see it as a big risk that they might actually giving your ideas to Chinese sellers. And actually one funny thing about one sourcing agent we had, like it was the first sourcing agent we had, and I mean she was actually really aggressive when it came to negotiations. So she kind of like ruined some of the relationship we had built with suppliers. So we had to actually step in and like calm down and kind of like because she was really aggressive. I mean, of course, I mean, she made us tons of money, she saved us tons of cost, but that also came with the expense that some of the suppliers didn't really want to didn't really like working with us anymore because she was so aggressive in getting the prices down. So that's one thing to definitely look out for. So was this helpful for you? Are you actually going to use any of these tips in your business? Subscribe to the channel, and if you need my help in sourcing, then just book a call with me and sign up for my free training.